Hello Virgo friends, I'm Annie Botticelli and welcome to my video, June 2020 Astrology. Virgo must knows. We're going to talk about the top, and there are quite a few, highlights for this month because we have a very, very, very busy sky this month. And we're going to talk specifically about how those might affect Virgo placements and the things that are most important for you to know as a Virgo. Okay, so the first thing to know, let's get my little handy grid up here, is that we've got a month covered in retrograde. Okay, if you've been watching my reports for a while, you've been hearing me talk about the retrogrades and how most of 2020 is covered in retrogrades, and how once we get out of that April 10th kind of window, we're really descending deeper into personal planet retrogrades, which means this is a very inward and backward type of energy. It doesn't always support forward moving and launches depending on what it is you're doing. There are always going to be exceptions. And you might find for certain people that certain things will just move along for you, but it's more from being present and centered closer to yourself rather than trying to force things. Okay, it's not a time to force things. So basically the three guidelines to understand for having Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde as we do this month is to keep your arrangements flexible if possible, especially if they reach beyond, for Mercury it's 3 to 6 months, if it's beyond 3 to 6 months, and for Venus like 9 months to a year. If you're doing something short term or something that's flexible or something that you can afford, and it's low stakes in the way that it's no skin off your back if you're making a little payment because it's something you're committing to, then that's fine. It's just the high stakes things that are a super big stretch for you that, if you have a lot of uncertainty and you're not really sure, those are the things you want to be a little bit more careful about, because probably not seeing all of the picture. Things tend to be shrouded in the retrograde time, and things are probably going to change as well. So the things that you commit to, if they don't have that flexibility, it could cause some tension because things are definitely changing in a big way. This is a major month of transformation. 2 of the 3 eclipses are this month as well. Fortunately for Virgos, Mercury, it starts its shadow period June 2nd. We'll start retrograde June 17th through 18th. We'll go direct on July 12th. The post-shadow period will run until July 26th. So for about 2 months, we've got this Mercury retrograde energy, and it's in a nice angle for Virgos, okay? So it's always helpful when a planet is doing something in the sky that's excessive, as Mercury is being excessively in Cancer at this time. Then if it's making a nice angle to your placements, then it increases the odds that the types of things that come back from the past, the types of news, the types of, information that Mercury specifically is bringing are going to be positive and supportive and helpful. Now, the Venus picture here is a little bit different. Venus went retrograde in May. It's retrograde until June 24th or 25th, depending on your time zone. And then it will go direct, the shadow period, which means like the little hangover after. There's a period before a retrograde and a period after. That's kind of like the water heating up and then the water cooling down, with the boiling point being the actual retrograde. So the whole cycle includes some time before that it gets worked up, and this time after that it sort of lingers. So Venus, which rules love, beauty, and money, has been affecting the perspectives on love and money and design and things like that. And hopefully this has brought some nice things for you, or will bring it depending on when you're listening to this. But it is at a challenging angle for you, so you're more likely to see some challenges come up in those arenas. But do know that this is for a finite period of time. It will pass, and that any period of, or any actions that you take that are productive on solving the original problem of why the issue happened is going to go a very long way. Work done in retrogrades really carries very far into the future because it resolves core issues. So you have a chance to shift your perspective on money, your relationship to money, your perspective on relationships, your relationship to relationship, and also heal relationships. Okay, so June 5th, we've got a 15-degree of Sagittarius eclipse. Now, what's important to know for Virgos is that the eclipse cycle we're stepping into, and this June 5th one is the first one. It runs through the end of 2021, all of 2020, all of 2021, is the Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle. And these eclipses are in a challenging angle for Virgo placements. So the eclipse cycle that we just had, that we're finishing up here, the Cancer Capricorn eclipse, that was in nice angles for Virgo placements. Now, of course, we can't make a scathing generalization and say, if it's in a nice angle, then 2 years for you will be great. And if it's not, 2 years for you will not be great. It's not that easy because you have way more placements than just your Virgo placement. You know, you've got all the planets in the sky somewhere in your chart in all different signs. But it does factor in as a piece of relevance in the total picture. So we are stepping into, more challenges. And the way that I see that coming is you're going to be forced to step out of a lot of things that are comfortable for you. This Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle starting now, and you will have been feeling this over the last few months, and what's going on with the coronavirus and in the world is just a small part, or this is a small part of how Virgos may be experiencing this, where Virgos like routine, they like the certainty, they like to have the regimens where, you know, everything is more predictable. And in this this eclipse cycle for you is really going to shake things up. It's at a challenging angle for you. But with that shakeup, you could actually be broken out of a matrix that was not serving you and that you were afraid to take a step out of. So I see it as a possible benefit in that way, but the journey of it could be a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, so this solar eclipse on June 20th, oh, by the way, that eclipse on June 5th, if you want to know where in the chart it hits for you, watch my May report. I go into details about exactly where early, middle, and late degree Virgo placements will experience that, and I give you resources to know everything you need to know about this lunar eclipse. Okay. So for this June 21st one, I am going to show you this in the chart. This is actually in a favorable angle for you, and we'll talk about that. And then this June 30th, Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. This is a really big deal. This is part of the outer planet mischief making that is creating the situations that are going on now. I've heard people say the coronavirus has caused the markets to, break down, and that's not true. What's happening is that we are in a process of massive evolution as humans from the rhythms of the planets and how they're joining together. So, and if you want to know more about that and understand this from the bigger picture, search for Annie Botticelli. Even if you search for Annie Botticelli coronavirus, it will come up, but it's called How the Astrology of 2020 Explains the Coronavirus and the Systems Breaking Down. This was a process that was already occurring. Once Pluto got into Capricorn in 2008 and Jupiter joined in Capricorn in 2008, the market crashed then. This Jupiter-Pluto conjunction happened again. It happened in April, and it's happening now at the end of June. It's going to happen again in November. So we're having it happen again because it's telling the same story. What this combination in Capricorn is saying is anything not sustainable is getting wiped clean. And you can see that. People who were living, and of course, this is a conflict. There's no judgment on this. This is just how it is. But if people are in a situation where they're far extended with their credit, they're living well beyond their means, they're not living within their income or their capacity to make the income, then this transit is leveling it, saying, okay, that way you were living, that's not sustainable. Now you have to bringing you back to where you're at, and then you can build from there. This whole month, including this transit, including the eclipses, including the retrogrades, reminds me of learning to crochet or knit. Like if you start out with something simple like a scarf, a lot of times people will notice they start one side is straight and the other side starts migrating over, like tilting, because you're missing stitches. And when that happens, you have a weird shaped scarf. So if you want to have a nice straight scarf that feels good and that looks good, then you have to unstitch, or the world will be the transits will be unstitching these stitches that were done after the error. The errors that were made in our past and the challenges that are holding us back and the imprints that are setting a precedence for us not living in the way that will be sustainable is all getting unhinged now. Like those stitches are being pulled out. But the good news is that once that happens, you can start stitching it up again, being more careful and more focused on whatever lessons were revealed to you for your personal situation, and you can make your nice straight scarf. And that's going to represent your life that's in order, that's coherent, that feels good, that is manageable. A lot of things are getting restructured as far as, education, work time, work location, everything. And so we're experiencing down from the global level down to the individual level, and this is a big piece. One very sweet piece for Virgos is that this actually makes a nice angle for your placements, especially those of you who are in the late degree placement. So if you're in the last 10 days of the sign or the last 10 degrees, then you are having a kiss, basically, a kiss from this placement. And we'll talk about that more when we look at the charts, which we can do right now. Basically, I will tell you if I'm talking about early, middle, or late. Otherwise, you can assume that what I'm saying is true for everybody. Early degree Virgos are basically the August born or 0 to 9 degrees. Middle degree is September 1st through 10th or 10 to 19 degrees. And late is around September 11th through the rest of the sign or 20 to 29 degrees. And it's those of you right here in this September 11th through the rest of the sign and 20 to 29 degrees, especially the closer you are to 24 degrees. And then that's going to be like the 16th, 17th, the days closer to the 16th and 17th. You all are going to get those extra special kisses from this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. And please do know that even if you're not in that spectrum, this combination is not only negative. We're seeing very clearly a lot of the negative effects, but it also can be positive. The Capricorn energy rules systems, it rules business, it rules father figures, help from fathers, working with fathers, healing with father figures, becoming an authority, anything stepping out in your place in the world for your highest expression, even if it's not your work, like as far as the work that you make money at, like finding your place and your purpose. It's very purpose-driven type of energy. And a lot of people I've seen have had major positive outcomes from the combining of these planets. Earlier in the year, they'll see it again, and then towards the end of the year. So, just know that there's that other end of it as well. Okay, so let's use the middle degree chart just to talk about some things that are true for everybody, and if there's something that goes into, early, middle, late, I'll let you know. The first thing that I want to look at is this predominance of energy in Gemini, okay? What's important to know about the energy of Gemini is that it has a similar energetic profile while it has an opposing energetic profile with Virgo, okay? Because Gemini energy moves in a spiral. It's mutable. It's an upward moving spiral. Virgo energy moves in a spiral. It's mutable. It moves in a downward spiral, okay? That's why Virgo energy tends to be grounded, tends to be realistic, tends to be, tangible and really focused on the mundane details. And why Gemini energy is ungrounded, reaching for up the stars, in this thinking space up here, like literally like this is your head and this is like down your feet at the ground, so it's like these are opposing forces and they are in a challenging angle. 90-degree angle, which is challenging. So when the predominance of Gemini planets come to pass, like they are in this month, it rubs Virgo energy in a raw way, okay? Because it's overstimulating, it's disorganized, it's chaotic, so it brings those influences that Virgo energies don't always love. But if you think about it from this perspective that I just showed you, and then you unite it here, let's put it on one plane, and then you put here's your Virgo energy going down. If there was any issues with depression or, being too logical or, something too realistic in a way, then you have this Gemini energy come as a counterforce saying, hey, here's some good things to be happy about. Here, you can be uplifted with this. Here's an idea that breaks you out of your, the line of thinking that you had. So even though it's in this conflict, it's also in this harmony, which is a very interesting thing. So you have a predominance of that going on this month. It very likely will be very overstimulating. So the more rest you can get, the better, because Gemini energy also rules respiratory systems. And usually I warn of being careful of colds and things like that, for being overstimulated when this happens. But we especially have to guard your lungs, okay? So if things start to open up in the world by the time this energy is happening, be extra careful. Just, standard practice, of course, hopefully everyone in the world is just gonna be washing their hands like crazy. But for Virgo placements, because of this, just be extra precautious. And I know you will, because that's part of what Virgo does, right? So you guys are going to have a leg up there. Okay, so the second thing I want to talk about is how this 10th house is being accentuated. And we can see this is the middle degree chart, but let's just kind of see early, also accentuated. Then in the late, it's also accentuated. Now you'll notice one of the things about the late degree chart, see these guys here? This is the Sun and Venus. See how they're over here in the 9th house? They're going to get here to the 10th house, but it's going to take longer. And of course, Venus is in retrograde, so that's moving this way anyway. But usually what happens is the planets in the sky are moving, right? Well, the sun's not moving, but it is relative to our perspective. So what happens is that, just show you this really fast, it drops back with every day that you are later in the sign, it drops back. So here, you know, right at the beginning of the month, the sun has already been focusing on the 10th house of work and career. And plus, you have all of this other stuff. We'll talk about that in a second. I just want you to see this point. So then when you look at the middle degree chart, you can see it's like, it's right there. For some of you, it hasn't exactly gotten in there as of the beginning of the month, but it's starting. And then those of you in the later part of the month, it just takes a little longer to get there. So you're still going to have the expressions of the sun in the 10th house, adding to all of this other stuff. It just is staggered because it takes longer. But what you can see is, even for your late degree placements, even though the sun and Venus are taking longer to get there, you still have all this other stuff. So the things we're going to talk about for the 10th house are true for all of you. And the 10th house has to do with work, career, and also the things that we talked about, your place out in the world, and, you know, anything having to do with father figures, becoming your own authority figure, things like that. So that's going to be accentuated in a big way. And I wanted to talk about Chiron. Okay, Chiron, the asteroid, here in the 8th house for early, kind of on the edge here for early, for middle, between the 7th and 8th house, and in the 7th house for late degree placements. Chiron is called the wounded healer. And Chiron was this gentle satyr who was a trainer of heroes. So all of those Greek mythology stories that you hear of, you know, these human people doing these superhuman things, Chiron was the one that trained them. And so Chiron has some negative associations in the chart because it's called the wounded healer, and we tend to have a special woundedness that we're working with personally when you look at the natal placement of your, you know, where it was when you were born. And then when it's in transit, it's bringing the theme of woundedness and healing woundedness and getting past your wounds to grow. It brings those to wherever they're going. So for all Virgos, you have that in relationship. And so you'll notice over the previous years, you've had a lot of relationship disappointments and a lot of relationship triumphs as you are healing those disappointments and, you know, maybe changing some things that you do in your relationships or having different perspectives. So your relationship space is very much continuing to have this energy that has a ton of promise for growth, but you have to walk through the feeling of being a victim and kind of get past that first. Okay, so we talked about the Jupiter-Pluto thing as far as the degrees, but now I want to show you where it's going to be in the chart. Jupiter and Pluto for the early degree placements, that's happening in the 5th house. We'll talk about what that means in a second. For middle degree, that's also in the 5th house. Oh, whoops, I don't want him there. And the late degree is on the line between the 4th and 5th house, which means that you will also experience the potentials in the 5th house, but you have this added 4th house tilt. Okay, so this boom that we talked about, for better or worse, this major restructuring, this major news, death, birth, transformation, rebirth, you know, often on the figurative level, although it could be literal as well, was just kind of blowing things up and rebuilding, is occurring for Virgos in the romantic sector of your true love, your relationships, you know, anything having to do with romance and romantic relationships. Also having to do with children and creativity and your creative babies, your place as a leader, you know, fields like athleticism or acting or fashion or anything that brings people looking at you. And also your hidden talents. Many of Virgo may figure out that they've got a talent that they didn't know they had. while these transits are here, which are super long term. So this energy is going on for a really long time, but there's a special boom. So if you feel drawn to try something like a hobby or a different kind of thing, or go back to something, you might find that you can really develop your gifts in this. So that's pretty exciting. Okay, also notice that you've got the 6th house accentuated in a short and long-term way. And that's true for late, middle, and not as much for early. But early degree placements, you do have Saturn getting ready to go here, and sometimes the influence starts beforehand. So you all might experience what I'm talking about. If you're having health issues, look up to see if your symptoms are related to potassium deficiency. This is kind of an interesting thing. I'm not going to get into all this, why I'm saying this now, but Virgos have a tendency to have a potassium deficiency. Potassium deficiencies are really weird things because nobody's really looking for them. And they sometimes will get labeled under enigmatic, I don't know what to do with you type of situations. Now, hear me very carefully. Do not go out and get potassium supplements and start taking potassium supplements. They're very dangerous. And I'm not going to get into why, but I just don't recommend potassium supplements. But potassium is super easy to get through your food. So if you determine, and again, you may have to work with a doctor, because if you're messing with your mineral balance, you want to make sure that this is right for you. But if you do a search for your weird symptom, or you look up potassium deficiency symptoms, you might notice that you have some symptoms that can't be explained otherwise that are associated with potassium deficiency. And so coconut water has a ton of potassium. Like a bottle of it has like 1,000 milligrams. I mean, it's easy to get it through food when you look up the high potassium foods. But because you from birth have this tendency to have a potassium deficiency, you might find that the enigmatic health issue you have could be linked to this. So I just wanted to mention that. All right, so the last thing we have to talk about, excuse me, has to do with the solar eclipse. Okay, so remember to watch the May report to see where the June 5th eclipse is going to be for you. And for the July eclipse, we'll talk about where that's going to be in the July report, which I'll release, beginning of June or end of May. So you'll have it in plenty of time. Now we're going to talk about the middle eclipse, which is this solar eclipse on June 20th or 21st, depending on your time zone, at 0 degrees of Cancer. This is the second to last Cancer Capricorn eclipse, wrapping up that cycle that we spoke about. And that was in a nice angle. That whole cycle was in a nice angle for you all, and this one is as well. Those of you in the early degree placements, so really early, like the first 5 to 7 days of the sign especially, or the first 5 to 7 degrees, you all will get an extra special kiss. And the earlier in the sign, the more of the kiss from this eclipse, okay? So that's going to be in a nice angle for you. And it's going to be an angle of possibilities. These are ingredients on the counter angle, where you might be handed things and then you might have to do something with them. And they might not amount to much if you don't do something with them. Okay, so the solar eclipse is going to be influencing the 11th house for the early degree placements, but could also be in the 10th house. And the middle and late degree placements are both going to have that in the 10th house, okay? So we've been talking about this 10th house a lot. It's going to be back there for late. Be there for middle. So for all early, middle, and late degree Virgos, powerful new work beginnings. Sometimes new work beginnings are disguised in new work endings, okay? So if you are experiencing an ending at work, you might get nervous at first. Try to work on that anxiety, and remember that all of our money comes from divine. We think it comes from our jobs. This is a principle that Spirit has drilled into me over the years when I've had many interesting financial situations, is that money comes straight from source. It doesn't come from a job or your spouse or your whatever you think it comes from. So the more you can bypass thinking that it's only can come that one way, the more you can open up to the many ways that it can come. All right. So if you have a job taken away, you might very soon also have a new job given, all right? There tends to be a swapping thing that goes on with these eclipses. So hopefully that will be true. And especially since it's in a nice angle for you, we're hoping that that could bring new, wonderful work opportunities, even in the midst of this craziness. You might have to stretch a little bit. We talked about this before. Stretch a little bit out of the norm or the way that you're thinking of doing it. Like if you're like, I have to have a job in this field. There's nothing here in this economy where I live, therefore I will not have a job. If you keep that line of thinking, then you're going to perpetuate the problem. But if you branch out and start thinking outside of the box, you can really, really expand into the possibilities that are here for you. Okay, so for the early degree, so everybody, all of the Virgo placements, look for my video called Eclipses in Capricorn or 10th house. Now this is going to be doubly true for you all because we have a Capricorn eclipse in July. Okay, so everybody has the energy of Capricorn eclipse. We're going to have the solar eclipse, which is in the Capricorn house for you all. Okay, so you're getting double eclipse in Capricorn energy. All right, so if you go to Annie Helps You TV or search for Annie Botticelli YouTube, you'll find the eclipse series. And now I'm telling you exactly what to watch. So, or you can search for Annie Botticelli eclipses in Capricorn or 10th house. And then you watch that one, and then you'll watch eclipses in Cancer or 4th house, because that's the sign of the eclipse. You'll watch eclipses in Sagittarius or 9th house, because that's the sign that the earlier one is in. And then you look to the May report to see which house you watch for that one. And then in the July report, I'll tell you the house to watch for the other one. So between all these reports, you'll get full coverage here. Now we're going to add to that for the early degree placements, eclipses in the 11th house. So if you search for eclipse in 11th house or Aquarius, early degree, you're also going to have some influence there. And that has to do with, well, I go into a lot more detail. So just friendships, humanitarian efforts, groups, teams, the greater good, community projects, community initiatives, things like that are really accentuated. Internet projects, technology, anything having to do with patents, things like that are all there. Okay, so those are the things that were most on my mind. If you want to have more resources, I have so many. If you look in the notes underneath this video, I have all the Venus retrograde links for the videos or the video and the blogs. I've got that coronavirus system breaking down video in there, and also to my 2 websites where I have like hundreds of blogs. You can learn more, including written horoscopes at cozybysweetstarlight.com. AnnieHelpsYou.com is my main site. If you want to have a write-up of the month ahead with all of the aspects to look out for, delivered into your inbox a month early, then sign up for my free email newsletter at AnnieHelpsYou.com. You'll also receive my 28-day virtual coaching program called Shine for free when you register for my email list. And if you'd love to learn astrology, if you resonate with how I teach and you want to learn either for your personal or professional purposes, then go to my school, Luminous Life Multiversity, at lumelife.com, L-U-M-E, life.com. You can also specifically see the astrology course at astropro.com. And I can bring you up to wherever you want to go with astrology. Also, buy my book. You can pre-order it. My new book that I've been working on. It is long, it is detailed, it is hardcovered, it is beautiful, and it is called Planetology: How to Align with the Natural Rhythms of the Universe. As you know, my work is all about that, helping you understand the energies at play so that you can align with them and have them work for you and not against you. So you can search for Annie Botticelli Planetology. You'll find my Penguin Random House author page. It's published through Watkins Media in the UK, but Penguin Random House is our partner, ensuring worldwide distribution. And I've already heard of people all over the world pre-ordering through different venues. So you'll be able to find that somewhere. Okay, so I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.